I am the person with the lists. Grocery lists, medication lists, people to call lists who has my extension cords lists. If there's a spreadsheet to be made, I'm the one hunched over it at 1:08 a.m. with a drippy candle and a chipped mug of cold tea, making sure the line breaks line break and the cells don't turn into mysterious hieroglyphics when you paste them into an email. I'm the person who remembers the password your browser didn't save. The one who buys extra batteries for your mic so you don't have to Venmo me after the event. The person who takes mom to her pulmonary appointment and gets her a ham and cheese croissant afterward because the steroids make her shaky, and then writes the grant application between refilling the humidifier and talking my partner down off the ledge after his third shift in a row. I'm not the one who gets tagged. I'm the one every tagged person texts at 11:43 p.m. with, "Hey, quick question about." So yeah, I was primed for this. I was trained for this by a lifetime of being the quietly competent one who takes care of everything while somebody else spins the story and smiles. If you grew up being the adult child, making sure the heat is on and the pills are sorted and the reminder texts go out, maybe you know the kind of hollow I'm talking about. A hollow that isn't empty exactly, it's full of other people's stuff. And it's heavy, but it's invisible to anyone who isn't carrying it. Maya was the opposite, charming, messy in a way people forgive, sparkly. She's the kind of person waiters give free desserts to, the kind of person who is always somehow in the picture, elbow tipped forward, eyes looking up and off into the middle distance like she's the protagonist of a movie. We met in a community organizing group. She floated to the top, as they do, and I floated to the logistics spreadsheet, as I do. I liked her. God help me, I really did. We traded night shift memes, and she'd bring me iced coffee with too much almond syrup, and we'd sit on the curb after a meeting and talk about how tired we were of the same 5 guys dominating the agenda. She had this laugh that made you feel like you were both in on a secret. The secret was, I did the work and she told people about it. The summer of the heat wave, the power grid hiccuped and people's fans died, and the city opened cooling centers that were like 3 buses away and closed by 6. Neighbors checked on neighbors, but it was chaotic. Hundreds of DMs, dozens of Google forms with no common fields, notes scribbled on index cards. Someone needed to build a single, simple map. Resources, statuses, who to call after 6 p.m., which senior buildings had working elevators who could drop ice. Maya said we should build a map. I said, okay, what's the data model? She tilted her head like I was speaking Norwegian. I took a breath and started listing columns. I built the prototype in 48 hours between mom's nebulizer treatments and my part-time job, answering questions for irate people who want refunds for things I didn't break. I set up the Google Sheet, cleaned the data, wrote the entry form, linked the form to the sheet, made the sheet readable, created the map layer by layer. I wrote the color key, the validation rules, the instructions. I wrote the set of texts we'd copy, paste to volunteers, the background scripts to ping us when a site's status was older than an hour, the template for volunteers to use when calling locations. I'm not a developer by trade. I learned this stuff the same way I learned how to take mom's oxygen tank regulator apart with a butter knife when it jams, because it needed doing. Maya made the Instagram. She made a reel of me zooming in and out on the map. You could only see my hands. She put me in quotes in the caption and tagged herself twice, built by yours truly with my amazing team. She did a live where she showed people how to submit a site. She smiled and her hair caught the light, and in that moment I was genuinely grateful. Everyone needs a Maya. I don't want to be that person on camera. I wanted to sit in my sweatpants in my mother's overheated living room and just make sure the color legend didn't lie. She said we. She said we built this. She said we're taking care of us. It was a bomb. The thing took off. Influencers reposted. People DM'd sob stories and miracles. A pastor used it to set up a circuit for ice deliveries. A teenager used it to find somewhere to cool her dog off after the vet closed. The city DM'd, yeah. Journalists emailed. A podcast producer reached out with, we'd love to have you on. I forwarded everything to Maya because I was literally elbow deep in a Google script that refused to stop duplicating a header row. She handled the comms. That was the deal, or I thought it was. The first article hits. It's a glowing profile in the local alt weekly. One woman builds life-saving map. That's literally the headline. They cropped a photo of Maya's face over a screenshot of my color-coded layers like she was the wizard in the Wizard of Oz head box. My name wasn't in the piece. If you squinted at the 6th paragraph, you could maybe infer there was a team. She texted me they had to streamline love, media, ugh, with an eye roll emoji. I was at mom's swapping out the reservoir of her oxygen concentrator, and I just typed, okay, and turned my ringer face down on the damp washcloth. I didn't condition myself to be invisible out of nowhere. The same week my brother texted, can you just pay the car insurance? I'll Venmo later. He didn't. My partner Ben was on his third 12-hour shift, and when he staggered into bed at 7 a.m., I was just finishing cleaning the data for a cluster of cooling centers in the North End that were suddenly by appointment only. I kissed his forehead and he mumbled, "She's gonna take your story if you're not careful," into the pillow. He meant Maya. I said, "It's not my story, it's a map." He cracked an eye open. MHM. Then Maya set up a Patreon. To keep this effort sustainable, it was under her name. The tiers were support a lifesaver, cooling hero, and God help me heatwave angel. The copy said I built this resource with my own 2 hands in a weekend. My hands, cracked and sticky with userin typing through a cheap Bluetooth keyboard with one key that stuck, laughed and then wanted to throw the keyboard across the room. I texted her. We need to set up a separate fund, transparency, disbursements to volunteers, also pay for data and supplies. She said, 100%, let me get the momentum going first, we'll sort later. Classic, she started doing panels. A nonprofit invited the founder of the map to speak about grassroots innovation. She sent me a comp ticket and a text, "You should come. It'll be so cool to have you there." Not on stage. In the audience, I couldn't find someone to sit with Mom because the home health aide had a funeral that week. I watched the live stream with my laptop propped on the kitchen counter, a pile of syringes for Mom's B12 shot, staging like tiny silver soldiers in the periphery. Maya wore a jumpsuit and said, "I built it in 48 hours with no sleep." And the crowd murmured admirably. Then she told a story, my story, about how her own mother's asthma made it so personal, how she timed her code sprints between nebulizer cycles, how caretaking makes you resourceful. I went cold from the inside out like somebody had poured ice water into my spine. I texted her half panicked, half betrayed. "Do not use my mother to get applause." She didn't reply for 2 hours. When she did, it was, "I was making a point about community." You're reading too much into it, babe. Everyone knows it's a team. Also, can you fix the submission form? Someone just submitted a butcher shop as a cooling center. Lol. I fixed the form. Of course I did. The butcher shop got a nice DM with information about how to donate ice to the actual centers instead. I put Mom to bed. I cleaned up a soda spill from the counter, a sticky archipelago spreading under 3 pill organizers, and then I sat down and opened a new sheet. Ben stood in the doorway, hands tucked into the waistband of his scrubs, watching the kind of soft winter thundercloud gather behind my eyes that means I'm going to do something you can't unfurl. "I'm documenting," I said. He nodded. "Time stamps, Slack logs, commit history, email threads. And you're going to make it readable," he said. He knows me. I did more than document. I made a ledger. I pulled the Google Doc revision histories where my username made 80% of the changes across 6 of our workflows. I pulled the git commit logs from the little code I'd hacked together to normalize phone numbers and throw flags when a site kept failing verification. I took screenshots, faces blurred because I'm not out to ruin volunteers, of Maya replying, "OMG, thank you," to volunteers at 1 a.m., while I was literally in the Google group to which she had not posted once. I copied and pasted my own text redactably. I wrote a scroll of plain language explanation that could be understood by someone's grandmother explaining what made it work and who by name did which parts. I DM'd 23 volunteers and asked if I could list their first names and general contributions. I wrote little blurbs. Lewis drove ice to 12 addresses the first night, also called to verify every hour for the next 3 days. Marisol translated the intake form into Spanish and recorded voice notes on WhatsApp for Abuela networks. Jake wrote the first draft of the volunteer shift matrix and debugged the survey logic when it kept eating addresses. I put my name last. I am not noble, I am extremely conditioned. I also drafted a letter to the Patreon donors. "Hi, if you've donated to keep this going, thank you. Here's where your money has gone. Here's what we need. Here's our proposed co-op structure to steward the funds. Here's a link to our budget. Here's a button to redirect your pledge to the co-op." I set up a new account with 3 other people on the bank signature and a Slack channel with a pinned decision log. I solidified every wiggly little thing that would be easy for someone to turn into a oops later. Timing is a petty little thing, isn't it? Maya posted that she was going to speak at a big panel with an assistant mayor and a tech guy whose bio contained the phrase serial entrepreneur. The flyer had her face and the map logo, my map, my colors, my dumb little cool droplet icon I'd made in Canva at 2:30 a.m. The panel was going live at 10 a.m. on a Friday. At 9:55 a.m., while Mom watched a game show where everyone shouts vowels, I hit publish on the dock. I posted a thread on Twitter, I refuse to call it anything else, and I pasted the same text to Facebook and Instagram. I titled it, "Who Built This?" Where it came from, where it's going. No exposition, no as a woman in tech preamble, just facts and okay, a little bit of bite. I'm allowed. Short version, I built the map and the systems that made it useful. I am not the only one. This is a list of the people who did the actual work. If you've been led to believe one person did this, that's not true. If you've donated to a Patreon under one person's name, please consider redirecting your support to the collective that actually runs this thing. Here are receipts, docs, timestamps, version history. Here are names. Here is the budget. Here is the disbursement plan. Here is a log of paid hours to date, mostly mine $0. Here are the volunteers who carried this on their backs. Share credit. Sure, start by tagging them. My notifications went thermonuclear. You know that awful rising chime sound your phone makes when you get too many alerts in a row? It was like that but happening on every device in the house. Ben took Mom to the porch. I turned off push. I watched the numbers go up and my heart rate go up. People DM'd things like, I wondered why she said she coded it all. Doesn't she do marketing? And this is why I quit last month. I felt erased. Journalists I'd talked to in a past life DM'd, can you comment on the piece we ran? We're updating. The Alt Weekly published a correction with my name and we regret the oversight that tasted like something left too long in the sun. Meanwhile, on the panel, someone in the Q&A, God bless them, asked, how do you credit your volunteers? Maya said her usual line, we're a team and this is us taking care of us. And then someone else, the tech guy I think, said there's a thread going around with receipts and the moderator smiled that tight smile that means a comms person is slacking them in their ear. Maya's expression did that flicker, you know, the one when your friend is thrown and you see their uncurated face for a heartbeat. She smiled again quick. Oh my God, yes, transparency is so important. Then my phone buzzed on the counter like an angry bee. What are you doing? Take it down, from Maya. Documenting, I wrote. Directing donations to the co-op, giving credit. You're making me look bad for no reason, she shot back. We were going to do this. You've had 4 weeks of panels to say my name, I answered. You've had 2 weeks to transfer the Patreon. Also stop using my mother like a prop. She typed, started and stopped. The typing bubble is the heartbeat of an apology you won't get. Babe, I love you, but this is not a good look, she sent finally. You're tanking the brand. It's not a brand I wanted to scream. It's a map. It's people on their mattresses with wet washcloths. It's ice that melts. It's a volunteer who took a day off her shift, which cost her money she needed, to knock on doors in a building that's a sauna at noon. It's my mother who can breathe easier if the room is under 78 degrees. It's my partner who wakes up crying because his job is killing him and then goes back anyway. The brand can burn. The co-op account filled up in a day. Donors thanked us publicly for making it clean and clear. Volunteers who had been ghosted by the general inertia of Glow came out of the woodwork. A woman named Derda wrote me a 3-paragraph email about how she's been the invisible person in her company for years, and she printed my doc to show her boss what credit looks like. The big nonprofit, the one with the panel, asked for a meeting. We went, the 4 of us who admin the new account instead of one person with a nice smile, and we said, here's what we need. Printers, bus passes, cooling vests for elderly with COPT, and please stop calling it Maya's map. Nodded, uncomfortably, but they nodded. Of course, the internet did its thing. Some people said I was jealous and bitter and trying to steal someone's shine. Someone slid into my DMs with, you could have just talked to her privately. I had, multiple times. You could have let her have this, one person said, and I actually had to put my phone down and go sit in the shower for 10 minutes because the water made a better noise than the noise in my head. Let her have my life. The story of my mother, the hours I gave my worst back pain to, the sleep I lost, the credit that could turn into rent, let her have this. I thought of every time my brother said just this once and never sent the money for the car insurance. I thought of the way you can say we like a blanket and yet somehow only one person ends up warm under it. Maya posted an apology. Of course she did. I saw it because 3 people sent me screenshots before I looked. I'm sorry for any hurt I caused by not amplifying the team more, it began. She used the word hurt twice and any once. She did not use my name. She tagged the co-op account. She transferred the Patreon money minus what she said she'd already spent on operating costs. Read. Her ring light and branded tote bags, and that one lunch I know she comped to someone who said they were going to connect us. We did not fight about it. We went to work. Here's the part that surprised me. It wasn't the money coming in or the journalists amending their pieces or the weird little flood of proud of you texts from people who had been side-eyeing the Maya show but didn't want to say. It was the volunteers, kids and grandmothers, and the guy who runs the corner bodega, who all said some version of thank you for seeing me. Not calling out. Seeing. They dropped by with plant cuttings and plates of rice and beans. Louis, the ice driver, came by with a bag of dumplings and his daughter and said, I told her if you ever erase my tier again, you'll have to do the calls yourself. We put a credit roll at the bottom of the map, like a movie. It scrolls. Names, roles, source of truth, verifier, runner, translation, driver, shift lead. It updates weekly. Sometimes it makes me cry, but not in the bad way. Maya's name is there under communications and outreach, because she did do that. She did bring people to the table. She still does. She texted me a few days later to ask if we could meet. I said yes in public. A coffee shop with plants and a loud espresso machine that could drown a confession. She looked tired. The shine was dulled, and for a human second I remembered that even sparkly people get bone-weary. She said, I thought I had to do it like this to keep it going. The brand deals the panels. People only pay attention if there's a face. You didn't have to use my face, I said. Or my mother's, she winced. I messed up, I really did, I'm sorry. It wasn't nothing, it also wasn't everything. She still made excuses in the corners. I was going to add your name, they cut it. My PR person said, you know how it is. I do know. I left the I forgive you hanging in the air like a light fixture nobody turned off, and I didn't touch the switch. Ben and I cooked cheap pizza that night and ate it on the floor because the living room is cooler than the kitchen. Mom tottered in with her robe and said through her little oxygen cannula, you told them. She nodded once like a judge. Ben tapped his beer twice against mine. A soft cheer for a soft victory. If you're looking for a moral, I don't have a tidy one. It's not like I flipped a switch and learned to say no, and everyone clapped and my back stopped hurting. I did draw a line finally in big fat paint and say, if you step over this one, we are not friends anymore. I stopped paying my brother's insurance until he sent me the money first. It took 2 missed calls and a late fee for him to learn. I told the nonprofit that if they ever invited just one of us to speak on this again, I would decline, and so would the entire co-op. I put my name on the thing I built alongside a lot of other names in a font size that doesn't require a magnifying glass. Mostly what changed is that when I look at the map now, I don't see just the invisible labor. I see the names we made visible. I see Lewis's ice circuit and Marisol's messages pinging across group chats and Jake's rewired form logic. I see my own name, which still makes me blush, nestled among them, not at the bottom by default, but in alphabetical order. It's small, but it's honest. Maya will be fine. People like her always find a way to land on their feet to pivot into the next story with a smile and a new jumpsuit. We still text sometimes about the old jokes. It's not the same, it shouldn't be. She is not evil, she is the weather, she takes up space. She was raised by the world by her own need to believe you have to be the face to survive. I was raised by my life by my mother's wheezing and the noise of the microwave counting down, to hold everything together quietly and to pretend not to mind. Both of us were wrong and right. The middle is the spreadsheet of names. I know some people will read this and call it drama or say I aired dirty laundry. Maybe, but I am so tired of holding the laundry basket and getting my hand smacked for showing the stains. You know what's more embarrassing than admitting you were erased? Being erased. You know what's more satisfying than a tidy ending? A messy truth with receipts. I'm not perfect. I waited too long to say something because I wanted to be nice. I let those alt-weekly comments fester inside me while I picked Mom's oxygen tubing off the carpet and fed quarters into a laundry machine and fell asleep with my face on my keyboard. I could have done this without the strangely theatrical timing. Maybe. But sometimes you need a stage to unstage a performance. Sometimes you need to make the people who only look up when there's an event look up right now. After we paid out the first round of stipends from the co-op to the volunteers who had missed shifts and spent gas money and stayed late at cooling centers that locked their doors early, we did something small and perfect. We made a party no one would film. We dragged folding tables into the park and set out a heavy-sweating bowl of watermelon, a tray of empanadas warm in their foil, a plastic tub full of ice till it sloshed. No speeches, no panel, no brand. We printed the credit roll and taped it to a fence. People pointed at their names and laughed and took photos. Maya came and brought paper napkins and used the tape like everybody else. Mom sat in the shade with her little trellis of tubing and let her shoulders drop an inch. Ben took his shoes off and pressed his toes into the grass like he hadn't touched ground for months. A kid wandered up and asked what was going on. We built a thing, I said, and then because that's the whole story and I didn't want to complicate it anymore, I added, and now we're eating fruit. He nodded like that made perfect sense and grabbed a slice and juice ran down his wrists. That's it. That's who the credit is for. Not a brand, not a panel, not a headline. Just the people who did the work and the sweet, sticky proof that sometimes if you show them exactly where the work came from, they'll finally look at the hands that did it. And they'll say thank you. And you'll say you're welcome out loud for the first time in your life. And it'll sound like punctuation finally landing at the end of a too long sentence. It'll sound like rest. And if you're like me, overworked, underappreciated, the emergency contact in every group, you'll feel that rest for a second before your phone buzzes again. It will. Someone always needs something. But now there's a co-op login and a list of names and a second person on the bank account and a decision log and a credit roll that won't let anyone get away with pretending. And when somebody tries, there's a link you can send that says succinctly, beautifully, irrefutably, here is who really deserves the credit. Including me. Including us. Including the kid with the watermelon, including my mother in her lawn chair who told me with that small judgy not only mothers give good. Finally.